Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my pleasure to have as my guest Christine Olson. Christine Olson was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but she heard the waves of change calling her to Florida in 1999 and joined her brother and son, who already relocated to the beautiful island of Anna Maria. Tiffiany, her daughter, decided to stay in Milwaukee and finish high school while living with her father. In 2000, Tiffiany couldn't wait any longer, and the three of them started a new adventure of life on a beautiful 7-mile-long barrier island, volunteering at Moat Marine Aquarium's whale and dolphin program, as well as the Island Turtle Patrol. Christine felt life just couldn't get any better. Then December 7th, 2005 happened. Tiffiany was involved in a fatal crash with her boyfriend, and in the blink of an eye, Christine's life, as she knew it, would be forever turned on its head. This is Christine's story of how she was forced to make a choice, to literally die, or to do something so no one would have to endure the horrific events she did that night. And as a result, TIFF Initiative was born. Christine, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. It's a pleasure having you on the program today.
Oh, Dave, thank you so much for those kind words. And as much as sometimes I just don't want to tell the story again and again, I just do take it, as something I have just been called to do. And my life mission is to make sure my story doesn't continue. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you are here too. I was going to get right into it. I know in the bio we talked about Tiffiany's death. Can you take us more into the events of that day of December 7th, 2005, and how everything kind of unfolded?
I want to say it was a Wednesday evening because I remember talking to Tiffiany earlier that week and asking her to go to an open house of like a big new spa building that was opening here in the Bradenton, Florida area. And it was going to have gifts and door prizes and free beauty treatments. And I said, "Oh, Tiffy, come and do this with your mama." And she's like, "Oh, Mom, I already have plans with Dustin." And I said, "Oh, darn it. Anyways," I said, "All right, I'll see you in church Sunday. See you Sunday, Mom." And that was the last time I physically spoke to my daughter. So December 7th, I remember I was watching a movie on TV and it was a really, really good movie. So it seemed the movie ended maybe about 11 o'clock or something p.m. Eastern time. And I turned it off and turned the lights off in the house and climbed into bed. And, you find that little sweet spot and the lights go off and you get ready to go to sleep. But I want to say my phone rang. Maybe about 11:15-ish, 11:20-ish or something. I had just settled in and I thought, who would call me this late at night? Really, who does that, And I'm from Milwaukee, and I thought maybe it was my sisters back in Milwaukee just saying, hey, we're going to call her, not realizing time change and all that. And honestly, Dave, I was going to let it go to voicemail or to the answering machine, But there was this gut feeling. And it just said, get up and answer the phone. So I got out of bed. I went to the phone. It was my son, Derek. He was 29 at the time. And he said, "Mom, she's been hurt in an accident. Get to Manatee Memorial. Don't ask questions. I'll meet you there." So before you can even get anything out of your mouth, the phone goes and he's telling me, just get to the hospital. And honestly, I don't even know if I got dressed. I don't remember. But I jumped in my little 96 Honda Civic and I raced to the local hospital, Manatee Memorial. Met my son Derek at the emergency room entrance. We ran in together. And I said I was looking for Tiffiany Marie Olson, my daughter. She had been hurt in an accident. And the emergency room looked at me and they said, well, she's not here. And I said, well, I know she's been hurt in an accident. So can you check with another hospital? Because she's hurt somewhere. And they said, because of the HIPAA law, we don't call other hospitals. And I said, that doesn't even make sense that one hospital wouldn't call like another hospital and say, we're looking for someone, you know? And I said, well, because I'm starting to panic. And I said, well, can you call the police or someone's got to know where she is or what's happened? I mean, this is my little girl. And they said, well, we don't know who to call. We don't know what county. We don't know if it's local law. We don't know what to do. And I give them that, you know, that they don't know because they're an emergency room. They're treating incoming emergencies. So, okay, that's settled. So they ushered me to a little room and they said, you can try and make a phone call there. And I remember it had the rotary phone on the wall with the long cord. Remember the cord that would get all tangled in that? And I guess you just, my son and I, we don't even know what you do. And we're like, okay, I pick up the phone and it's the operator and it says, operator, what number, please? And I'm like, I don't even know. We don't know. So my son started calling people he knew and I just went into full-blown panic and crying. And I remember going to the chapel and I thought, I just need help, Father God. I just need help to find her. And nothing. So now it's 1:30 in the morning. Tiffiany has been dead since 7:01. Tiffiany has not been hurt in an accident. She was killed in an accident at 7:01. Now it's 1:30 in the morning and I'm still in panic mode and I don't know what to do. And I'm standing outside the emergency room entrance of the hospital and highway patrol pulled into the parking lot. Now, remember I told you my son was 29. He wasn't a little boy, but he's standing on my left-hand side and I see this movie play all over again in my head. And he collapses and starts crying. And I thought, not my girl, not my girl. And highway patrol, I want to say it was men. I don't remember exactly, but they approached me and very casually said, sorry, she's gone. And I'm like, well, I've been told she's hurt originally. So like is she in Tampa? Did she go to Tampa or St. Pete? I mean, where did she go to? And again, if I remember nothing, I remember the shrug of a shoulder. And it was a law enforcement officer just saying, well, no, I presume she's at the medical examiner, but they're closed. You can call them in the morning. Could you sign for this? And it was a plastic bag with my daughter's belongings in it. And they sent me home. That was that.
Wow. So it took approximately 6 hours for you to be
6 and a
notified.
half.
6.5 hours to
6
be
and a half.
notified.
And over all the years that I've been doing TIFF's initiative, 20 years now, that national average before you, Dave, or your listeners can be reached and notified hovers right around 6 hours. In some cases, depending on the situation, it could be a homeless person or an abducted person or whatever. Law enforcement here in Florida, it could take weeks. It could take weeks before we even know. And think of just situations that arise between families. Sometimes families are not talking to each other. You know, they just aren't. And so you may go on weeks or months and say, gosh, I haven't heard from, I wonder if they're still alive or whatever. And they may have died months ago or whatever, and you don't even know. So very sad situation.
Well, just as you were outlining the details of when you were informed from your son that Tiffiany was at the amenity to hospital, and then you go there and they don't know anything. Just
Yeah.
the fragmented communication between everybody involved in an emergency situation, between first responders, police officers, hospitals, critical care units. And then what struck me was just the business-like approach that the police officer had. Well, she's gone. Well, that's not the way you share news with somebody, especially when you've been frantic for 6.5 hours trying to determine the whereabouts of your daughter, and then you being told that she was hurt, and then he just comes up to you and says, well, she's gone, sign for this. It's like, okay, what are we dealing with here? A piece of property or a human being?
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it would be like for me to be in that situation with that type of fragmentation and the length of time that it took for you to be notified of his next of kin of Tiffany's death. I couldn't imagine being in that situation, but for me, that had to be just awful, for lack of a better way to put it.
It's so unbelievable. But since then, because I've been doing this a long time. So now law enforcement, I talk to, new recruits. They've changed their law enforcement, be it highway patrol, sheriff's department, police officers, their special training, how to talk to people when you're responding.
Yeah.
This is all changed. And originally what I was told is just that law enforcement responds to so many of these. They're so totally understaffed that it does become, like you said, business as usual. It just is. Until that table is turned and it's you
Yeah.
on the receiving end, then law enforcement stops and they say,
Yeah.
because law enforcement, their moms, their dads, their sisters, brothers, they're all of it. So it's really is it's changing it all. It really is. And how I was chosen to spearhead this was just because being on a barrier island, Anna Maria, I'm on a little tiny island. What do you do for work there? I went into the service industry. I was a server at a little fishing shack called the Rod and Reel Pier. Very world famous it became. And I talked to many states because these are tourists coming in, but I have no experience in law or government or bills or state representatives. I'm a mom that said something is very, very wrong with that length of time. Also, just how I was handled, like you said. And it's just really what TIFF does. It bridges that gap between
Yeah.
law enforcement and families. Regardless of where you live, your family can be reached quickly because law enforcement will know who to reach on your behalf.
So tell us more about TIFF. What does the acronym stand for? And I know it's inspired by Tiffany's, death and her, her legacy. But tell us more about the mission of TIFF. What other services do you provide, and how many states currently TIFF is a part of?
So, TIFF, to inform families first. How ironic that the mission lines up with her name. So originally, and I would really encourage your listeners, go look up a picture of the Rod and Reel Pier. It is no longer there. It has been taken down with the storms of 2024. But it was an old fishing shack built in 1947. And so I mentioned that. So I was just an industry worker. But because it's this little island, everybody on that island knew what happened. They knew me. They knew my son. They knew Tiffany. And so the island really came up to kind of figure out what do we do now. I was expressing the idea just about putting emergency contacts in a license, which just was an idea I came up with in my head, simply because Tiffany and her boyfriend, Dustin, they were on a motorcycle. And I know people, they think, oh my God, people ride. They're young people. I say Dustin, her boyfriend, came out of the womb on a bike. He raced him. He jumped him. They fell in love. They rode. And they were simply going out to dinner after a 9-to-5 job that night. So I come up with the idea and start talking to people, just like I'm talking to you, Dave. And I said, what do you think about ever putting emergency contacts in a driver's license? So the island just stepped up and said, oh my God, this is amazing. So we started a petition drive and people made copies of the petition. The petition actually was created by the cook in the kitchen, Captain John. He made the petition. Then people took the petition, they made copies, they go door to door, get this signed. So now we've, established about 1,000 signatures. I'm like, well, what do I do next? They said, go to your state representative, which was Bill Galvano at the time. I go to him in Bradenton, Florida. I tell him my story and my idea. And Bill Galvano, he was no small-time state representative. He went on to become president of the Senate, but he looked at me and he said, oh my God, this is amazing. He takes it to Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, proposed it and said, there's a mom in Bradenton. She has an idea. What do you think, Florida? But then going back to the rod and reel and Anna Maria Island, we were trying to think of something to tie in her name. And I'll never forget, I was on the upper deck of the rod and reel, and Kathy, a longtime customer at the rod and reel, and her daughter, Mona, they ran out on the deck and they said, we have the name for the program. We have it. To inform families first. And I thought, oh my God, that's perfect. So everything was linking up. We have the website. We have the mission is making sure families can be reached quickly. We have the state representative that thought the idea was amazing, taking it to state of Florida looking at it and said, why haven't we done it? We're doing it immediately. Now, when do you hear state government speak like that? You don't.
You don't, not too often.
But the state of Florida seen it as a solution to the crisis of the national average of 6 hours. Because we already have a database. The database is on the back of everybody's driver's license or state-issued ID. There's a database, and that holds information for law enforcement. So all they had to do was add a little software to receive emergency contacts, tie it into the existing database, and TIFF was born October 2nd of 2006, with me, Christine, being the very first person ever on the planet to add emergency contacts to an existing license. I was so scared that day. I'm sitting in Bill Galvano's office. All the media's there. The state of Florida's there, because state of Florida's like, is this even going to work? I mean, nobody's done it. I don't know. We're waiting to see. So they had me sit there. They had me put my contact information. I was probably shaking like, what do you say? Shaking like Don Knotts. And I put my information in and I'm looking, and all of a sudden they just said, hit enter, do it. And I did. And I was number one, literally in the world. And currently in our state of Florida alone, nearly 22 million people have registered with TIFF's initiative. 22 million people from one mother, one idea that had no idea what she was doing. And I'm understanding about 19 states have picked it up. It could be more, but because other states, they just see what Florida's doing and they say, hey, we're going to do it too. So they don't come to me and ask permission. They just adopt it. So if you want to see if it's in your state and your state is not listed, just go to the search bar on your motor vehicle website, whatever state you're in, and type in emergency contact program and see if something pops up, and let me know if it does. But right now it is sitting with United States Congress, and is named the To Inform Families First Act. It's waiting to be signed. I'm not at the top of their list. You can imagine there's much going on in our country. But eventually it will be signed, taking it into every single state nationwide. But it shows like yours, Dave, that lets the people know, let me see if it's in my state, or if it is in my state, oh, excellent. Let me make sure I register today and start advocating it. Share TIFF's initiative with those you love and care about. That's the simple mission, Dave.
It's a powerful mission. You're talking 22 million in the state of Florida. TIFF is in 19 states. Now, if there's not an emergency contact program and individuals in that state want one there, what's the best way for them to advocate for that? Who should they talk to?
follow my steps because that was going to my state representative. Everyone has one. It's in your district, whatever district you live in, whatever state. But first, go to the website, toinformfamiliesfirst.org. Dave, you will supply that. And click the register link. All the states will pop down or drop down that are now participating, and just hit your state. And that'll let you know if your state's participating or not. If your state is not listed, simply share the link to informfamiliesfirst.org, copy paste it, whatever, and send it to your state representative's office and say, listen, I was watching this podcast and they were talking about TIFF, to inform families first. It's not in my state. How do we get this done for me and my families?
Yeah.
Because remember, that national average is 6 hours.
Yep.
Most individuals, be it state representative, a sheriff, a police chief, whatever, they'll look at it. They'll look at the success of Florida and say, why haven't we done it? It's simple. It costs nothing. Truly, literally nothing. You're adjusting software. This isn't recreating the wheel.
Yep.
And you're doing something not only for the residents of the state, but you are helping law enforcement. You are providing a tool for law enforcement to use when every second counts, when they're responding to these emergencies and everything is on, click, click, click. Reach out to me if you have any questions. But really, the state representatives or a sheriff or a police chief, and just say, please take a look at what Florida is doing. And I want to get this championed in my state.
Yeah, it makes sense. And some grassroots advocacy is the way to get things done. And like you said, it's a simple program. It doesn't cost government any money. It's not going to strain budgets. And if anything, it's going to make an already very intense crisis situation when a family member dies. It's going to make it at least, I want to say, for more manageable, just because there's not going to be that fragmentation and that uncertainty in terms of where's my loved one now that I found out that they died. And it's going to take away that 6 hour time frame that it took for people to get informed of the status of their loved ones.
And it really is not fatalities, Dave. This is heart attack. This is stroke. This is dementia. This is special needs world. These are falls. These are the homeless population. This is really affecting every human being.
Yep.
And like here in Florida, we get a lot of snowbirds. So I talk to a lot of the snowbird populations here. And that gets their little wheels turning because they're like, so I'm visiting Florida. I'm here for 3, 4, 5 months, but my license is from New York. So if something happens to me in Florida while I'm here snowbirding, they're going to the address on my license in New York, but nobody's at that address in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So who do I contact? There goes that wheel, 6 hours.
Yep.
Here we go.
Yep.
So this is, again, bridging the gap between families and loved ones.
Yep.
And making sure law enforcement knows exactly who you personally want notified. Not that they're coming up with some different ideas or whatever. And you think of the elderly that live alone here. I mean, really, it's a crisis everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
You think of runaways, you think of all these different things, overdoses, so many people, suicide.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what TIFF is doing. It's a humanitarian effort. I don't want anyone to ever experience my horror, but you have to be proactive and you have to get this done.
It makes sense because, whenever a loved one is hurt or killed, there's always a certain amount of stress that's going to affect families. Why should we create more stress by having a fragmented communication system?
Yeah.
So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Tiffiany, what you remember most about her?
Oh, gosh. Well, remember, she was only 22. So she had her whole life in front of her. But Tiffiany was a beautiful girl. She had this incredible smile. And I think what people remember was her smile, her gentleness. She had, it was after she died that people kind of came forward and told me things about her. And they said that she always had this way of like putting her hand on their shoulder. This was the owner of the Rod and Reel. He was from Germany that told me this. He said she would just come up to you and she would look at you with her, her smile and put her hand on your shoulder and have a great day. Take care. Nice seeing you, whatever it was. But I want to say Tiffy was an old soul. She had this thing in her, and I would look at her sometimes and I thought, "Did you ever get that?"
Mhm.
She had a compassion for people. I remember this woman, I asked her, I just said, like, "Where do you meet these people?" This woman was suffering from cancer. I don't even know where she was, in a pretty desperate place of Bradenton, Florida. And Tiffy somehow connected with her, and I don't know how, and would take her grocery shopping and stuff. And I mean, it's something that, Dave, I don't think of you. I don't, you know? She would tell me that she was a blood donor.
Mhm.
And she said, "Mom, are you donating blood? That's important. You need," she said, "I'm going to try and get a job on that bus," because she wanted to be participating in the needs of others. She had a thing for animals. Simba was her last little dog. Simba was found on the side of the road, hit by a car, left to die. And Tiffany was at the time working for a veterinarian, and she rescued the dog. And even the vet said, "That dog's in bad shape." And Tiff said, "Put my wages toward surgery." And Simba lived. She had hip issues, but she lived. And gosh, I just think, who would Tiffany have become if she had lived? What kind of remarkable person could she have become? We love the ocean. That was a big thing for Anna Maria because we volunteered with the whale and dolphin program at Moat Marine Aquarium, the turtle program. So the ocean was her thing. But I just think, gosh, such a young age, to have that snuffed out. But I just wonder really, well, who Tiffany would have become. But I believe, I'm a woman of faith, and I know what the Bible says. And there's this bracelet that I wear, little purple one and white. And it's got the Bible verse, John 11:25 on it. And I just wrote on the purple side, or had imprinted, "What if it's true?" And the Bible verse simply says, people, look it up. Even though you die, you live.
Mhm.
So I say Tiffany never died. She took the zip line to the feet of Jesus, and she's alive. I'm just separated from her right now. There will be a
Mhm.
reunion, but right now it's just this mission I've been given to do in her absence. It ties into her name. My mission is to take it nationwide. It has international push. I don't know. But, there's this quote that I love, and I put it on my emails, and it's a little 13-year-old girl, Miss Anne Frank. What a remarkable human being.
Yep.
And the quote was something to the effect, "Isn't it wonderful we need not waste a single moment before starting to improve the world?"
Yep.
A 13-year-old girl, I see Tiffany in Anne Frank. I see Tiffany would have been just doing things remarkable, but I'll have to wait and see about that, though. So that was my girl.
Well, and it's from obvious from a young age, she was committed to helping others. She was committed to service to others, very selfless. And she is a beautiful young woman. You sent me pictures, some of which I'm going to include in our YouTube portion of the conversation. She's just a beautiful young lady. You could see her smile could light up a room.
Yeah.
Um, and she just had a really great aura about her. And you're keeping her alive through your work with TIFF.
Oh,
And
I am.
and
I
she
am.
and for that, and as long as the message of Tip keeps getting passed down, she'll remain immortal in the eyes of others in this world because her message will continue to live on while she continues to go on in a new existence in a different world. So she's going to be alive in the afterlife, and she's going to be alive in the world with the work that you're doing. So
This was never me back in the day, I was a rambunctious young lady. I really was. I was not one to set out to help and maybe even anybody. It just wasn't. I cared about myself. I cared about me and, all that, just like many people do. But when this happened and TIFF started to pick up this momentum, it fueled something in me to really change things within the world, be the change. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen if you don't open your mouth and do something about it. And I want to leave a legacy. You look online, there's people that leave legacies and you read them and you say, what a remarkable thing to be remembered for. I want to be remembered that I stepped up to the plate. I didn't sit on the sidelines and saying, you need to do this and you need to do that. I said, nope, let me do something. I had no idea it would ever escalate into this. But the people that I encourage, the people that I meet, the other states that I have conversations with, law enforcement, it puts you into this realm of people that are participating
Mhm.
in doing something.
Yep.
And then you hear what other people are you doing and you say, how do I help? How can I help you do that? And so it's a life that I would have never chose to do this. I would have never chose to go through this again or never choose this loss. But I have to say, in her loss, I have been given a chance to live a life, create a legacy that I could have never done without this accident. I'm grateful. I'm
Mhm.
grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful that her name stands for it all. Her world was purple. I mean, it just everything, her hair tools, her toothbrushes, everything was purple. So now it's become my color. But I just say, Tiffy girl, you started these little things. Let me continue on. And it's, like the blood mobile and stuff. I give blood. People need that.
Yeah. Mhm.
But, just do good. Get out there and do something. And it will really enlighten your life. It will give you purpose and make you really say, you know what? I can do more than sit on this dang sofa. Let me get out and see who I can help. And I encourage everybody, what is your passion? What do you love to do? Who do you care about? Just
Mhm.
see what volunteer opportunities are available in your community. But if you feel like getting involved with TIFF, I would love to hear from you.
I mean, it's usually a challenge that gets us off our butts and to commit to a life of service and to try to help others as a result of what's happened to us. So, and thank you for the work that you're doing with TIFF to create awareness about the
Mm.
importance of having emergency contact information embedded into driver's license and the DMV database, everything. So, thank you for what you're doing with that. And my last question for you is if people want to get in touch with you, find out more about TIFF, what's the best way for them to do that, Christine?
Well, the website, which you will provide,
Yep.
and I will say right now to who's ever listening, first and foremost, go to the website, toinformfamiliesfirst.org, click register. If TIFF is in your state, register immediately. Don't put this off. And most states, Florida really set their standard a little high. They want 2 emergency contacts.
Mm.
Some states are settling for 1, but the state of Florida wants 2. Find me on Facebook. Now, I've included that link, Dave, for you also to share with your listeners. Like us on Facebook. That's the only one platform I'm really using at the moment. Like the page, share the post, like it and share. That's all you're doing because it goes into other people's feeds and other people are seeing it. That's
Mhm.
how California heard about it. That's how Georgia heard about it. Then share it on your social media page. Put the TIFF link in there and say, you know what? I had listened to this podcast today. They're talking. I registered immediately. Share it with those you care and love about. And then send the link to a state representative or law enforcement person in your community. Go have a conversation with them. Share the link and say, get this done in our state, please. I can only imagine that your state would be very grateful that you brought this to their attention, because it will save them eventually the 6-hour national average of notifying loved ones.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure all of your contact information, the information about TIFF gets in the episode notes before we go live. Christine, thank you so much for just a wonderful conversation today. I truly enjoyed it, and I hope we can do this again in the future sometime.
I just want to say one more thing, because in the pictures that I sent you, Dave, there was one of an award. It was a glass prism. That was not given to Christine. That was given to the state of Florida. And that was through Harvard University, the John F. Kennedy School of Government, for the idea of TIFF and for the state of Florida to implement it quickly, that they were given this award. That was pretty cool. Harvard University, and for the state of Florida to receive that award. One mom, a server at a little fishing restaurant, changing the world. I hope to do it again with you too, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.